you are now teachers. So congratulations, you're all honorary teachers. You are in charge of all of the teaching. And I know that you're really excited about that and probably really overwhelmed. So congratulations, you're honorary teachers. So I'm going to talk to you today in two different directions, one as teachers, one as parents, but those resources are specifically for you as parents to get more insight as a teacher would. So again, those links are in the description. I'll be talking about things throughout this hour. And each of the things that I'm touching on, you're going to be able to go and dig deeper into by using those resources. All of those resource links are free. I'm actually going to tell you about one that's unlisted that you can't access publicly. Well, you can access it publicly, but you won't know it's there unless you know it's there. So it was originally designed for teachers to share with their parents if they're already using these strategies in the classroom. But I went ahead and included the link here as well, and as well as one other special one that I'll talk about that you can access. And then that will help you kind of warehouse some of the things that you're going to need now and that you might need going into the summer. So I am so thrilled to see everybody there in the chat. That is great. Oh, and I see some of you guys have your kids with you. This is awesome. If your kids use the secret stories in the classroom, then a lot of this is going to sound familiar and they'll be able to follow up and kind of continue the conversation after this discussion. Now, if you don't use the secret stories, this is part of why I'm going to talk in two different directions, but I'm going to be really clear. It's also why I put all those links in the description so that it's easy no matter which way you're coming at this learning from. If you are a parent and you have no idea what a secret story is, but you just either stumbled upon the parent workshop to fast track that phonics for reading, or you have a friend who told you to log on and you don't even know what this is going to be about, I'm going to make sure that you have an easy access point to make sense of everything that we're going to talk about and then really move with it. And start using these strategies at home. If you're a parent who already knows what a secret is because you've been hearing your kids come home for the course of this year going, I learned a new secret today, I know a secret today, or there's a secret in that word, then you are already going to have an idea of what this looks like from a home perspective. But again, now that you're honorary teachers, you need a deeper perspective because you are now rolling that ball forward for your kids, and the teachers are going to do what they can remotely, but what you can do and what you can weave through the course of the day is the most valuable. And that's really why typically what I share with parents is limited to the scope that they have with their kids, which is, the nighttime story, the homework being done, the spelling practice, or just, sharing a book together. But now that's not the case. Now you're teaching for teaching's sake, and you need to really ground and anchor what you're saying as you're working with your child with text, either to read or to write, in something that they can start to own and have deep in the gut. And that something is the code. So this is not going to be fluff. Where we're going to head, and I'm starting right now, is I'm going to talk about how to really help kids understand why letters are doing what they're doing in text by helping you understand why letters are doing what they're doing in text. It's not something that even teachers necessarily intuitively know or are able to teach naturally based on their teaching education. The letters, the sounds, and the phonics patterns are very abstract. They are not something that you can explain in a way that gets kids to go, oh, I get it. I get why peace is put. There's nothing to get. It's a symbol and it denotes a sound, and you just have to memorize it. You just have to know it. And the way you know it is either a lot of repetitious practice, or if you're lucky enough, say it a couple times and kid just knows it. And kids vary from hearing it once or twice and knowing it to having to do it 1,000 times and still not seeming to remember what you just did yesterday. And as parents are now honorary teachers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I have 2 daughters and I have one of each. One that was just got it, and one that, oh my word, you could just pull your hair out with. Now, this was before I really kind of looked at how things are developing in the brain and how we can take some shortcuts and shorten the learning curve for ourselves and our kids. And that's why the secrets exist. They give kids access to not just individual letters and sounds, which is where I'm going to start, because I think that's something that's the baseline. And I want to make sure you understand how this all comes together, what you can do at home, and how you begin, even though I realize you're all over the map with your ages of your kids and their specific needs. But those individual letters and sounds do not need to take forever and a day to teach, because you don't have to teach them, you can give them. Instead of using repetitious practice to learn what I just called abstract skills, you can actually feed into the area of the brain that has this need to know. And that's what we're going to be talking about. These little backdoor access points that when we look at the neuroscience, we look at the brain system for learning, we look at brain development, specifically early brain development, which is the other real issue with this. Not only are these skills abstract, where there's no logical explanation to give, we're directing them to an audience of concrete thinkers, meaning early grade learners, kids that are 4, 5, 6, 7. They don't have abstract, higher level cognitive analytical development yet. Their brains are still developing. They're concrete thinkers. If they see it, they can hold it, touch it, feel it, look at it, twist it around. That's how they learn. They learn by touching, doing, seeing, experiencing. Abstract thinking requires concrete knowledge that you can then apply to the abstract information. If kids don't have the developmental readiness to do that, you can beat a dead horse and flash cards in their face all day long. But if they're not developmentally ready to open that door, then you're just kind of going through the motions and working hard and not smart. So what we want to do is not try to force our way through the front door, which is the higher level processing, executive function area of the brain, which is here. We want to slip through this back door, which is the social, emotional, feeling-based networks. Feeling, the way kids know when it's not fair. You don't have to explain why something's not fair. Your 3-year-old can tell you in a minute when something's not fair. And if you actually said, why isn't it fair? Oh my word. Well, because I got to go yesterday, but he got to go the day before, and it's not fair because last week they could just use every bit of language skills they have to fight their case about what's not fair, or why someone isn't nice to them, or why they're mad at you, or why they're mad at someone else. This is the area that they have expertise functioning in. So that's the area we're going to target for high leverage phonics skills. And the neat part about looking at the neuroscience is when we look at brain plasticity, we can see how, based on how we wrap up a skill, we can trigger or target areas desired to take it in. Meaning we don't have to just teach it and have to expect them to be ready to catch it or to learn it. We can strategically wrap up these skills so as to trick the brain into thinking it belongs in this other area, this feeling-based area. Now, we have to be kind of clever to do that, because there's nothing about letters and sounds that project or trigger feelings, but we can make that happen. We can trigger that in the way that we target our instruction. So that's where we are going to start. This is where I'm going to begin, and I want to start at the very beginning. And also, too, please don't... what's the right way to say this? If I look at the chats right now, which I'm so excited that they're happening and that they're buzzing, I will get distracted because I have really terrible ADD. And so I am going to hit those at the end when I answer questions. Because obviously I don't want to make you sit and wait for me to go through the chats at the end. What I'll let you do is, obviously, then I'm going to tune in directly to your questions and then answer them. I'm going to talk about something else I'm going to do to address all the questions that I will be missing at the end. But I will, at the end of this time frame, when I answer the questions, I'll be doing that live as they're typed then. So if you have a really good one, remember what it is, jot it down somewhere. If you want to put it in the chats now, you can, because I do see some pretty incredible teachers that know everything, and probably more than me even, about various grade level angles of this, so they can answer you in real time. But otherwise, I will tell you another way that I'm going to address things that are in the chat that I don't get to see right now. So it's not that I'm ignoring the chat. I'm thrilled to see it's moving. It's just that if I focus over there, I won't keep my focus here. Now, I set up where we're going to head and how we're going to get there. But what I want to do first is explain the difference between having material and not having material. I don't want today to be about material. If you have absolutely nothing, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Because what I'm going to talk about are strategies and how to teach smarter and not harder, and actually make things make sense for your kids. If you have the material, the difference is they have a way to go back and reference to independently read and write. Now, I'll show you how that would look after a bit, but just right now, so you can kind of rest easy if you have nothing at home and aren't going to have anything at home for a while because of the situation, that is not a problem. Now, starting at the beginning is the individual letter sounds. Now, if you're a parent of a student who does not struggle with the individual alphabet sounds, please bear with me because this is building, it's building into something that's going to get exactly where you are going to need to be. So there are a lot of parents here who have kids that are in kindergarten or perhaps coming into kindergarten or even in first grade who are still working on and struggling with these individual letters and sounds. Traditionally in the classroom, those individual letters and sounds are taught using repetitious practice, meaning they can spend a whole year trying to work on individual letters and sounds. And by March or April, kids are still trying to remember what the P says or what the K says. We don't have to do that. So the way we're going to cheat with this baseline, and that's what individual letters and sounds are. They're the baseline that create the need to know, which is why this part's important, even if your kids already know individual letters and sounds. This is your in. So for both groups, kids who don't know letters and sounds, individual letters and sounds, and kids who do, this is going to be the access point that we're going to hit for both involved. So pay attention either way. The individual letters and sounds are what letters are supposed to do. It's like the behavior your child is supposed to have. Doesn't mean they always have it, but it just means this is the expectation. This is the norm. So A is supposed to say ah, and A is supposed to say A. It's not supposed to say ah, like in the word August, and yet it does. Just like in the word Austin or saw or okay, I've lost my words that say ah, but every word where A isn't making the sound that it should can be very frustrating to kids. So we want to set the baseline first with explaining or cementing what letters are supposed to do. And the good part is for these sounds, we don't even have to work with the brain areas in terms of social emotional connections at all because we're going straight through muscle memory. Muscle memory is the most reliable, most common denominator among the early learners. And we're talking 3 years old, 4 years old. Now, I'm not saying you need to go find a 3-year-old and teach them their individual letters and sounds, but language development is key. So I did, since it's just a song, I started singing this with my girls when they were itty bitty. Because why not? It's just a song. It's just a song, just like the stories are just stories. And what it does is it starts putting in their ear the sounds of our language. What it also does is it starts connecting these abstract symbols to the sounds that they make, but without kids having to process it, understand it, or memorize it. So something called the better alphabet is the first way that we're going to cheat. What it does is it will give kids those individual letters and sounds. Now, we're not talking phonics here. We're talking, B says B, K says K, C says K, N, S, Y says Y, N, E, N, I. Those aren't secrets. Secrets are something we're going to talk about later. That's what letters do when they come together and don't do what they should. But the individual letters and sounds are what letters are supposed to do. And the better alphabet is a muscle memory way of getting those into kids in 2 weeks to 2 months. Now, I say 2 weeks to 2 months. It takes about 2 weeks. If you do it twice a day, every day, and I would say in the morning and the evening, your kids will probably want to do it more than that. And you'll be the one going, stop, stop, stop. I can't take this anymore. So you just need to make sure that it becomes a routine twice a day, morning and evening. If they want to do it sometime in between, that's perfectly fine. But twice a day, every day. And in about 2 weeks, you will see that they will have those individual letters and sounds under their belt. That's so important. Now I'm going to demonstrate a quick snippet of it. And then that's one of, I think it's actually the first link in the description on this video. So that's really important. Now, when I say I'm going to demonstrate it, it's just to show you why and how it's working so that you understand a couple absolute must-dos with it. There is more in those description links, and there's a short version and a longer version. The longer version gives you the why you're doing what you're doing and how it works and why it works and other troubleshooting pieces. The shorter version just shows it to you. So you can access either one. But the muscle memory access or motor memory access requires no thinking involved. So they can eat their shoe, lick the carpet, and still get all those individual letters and sounds. The only thing that you need to make sure that they do is see what they sing and sing what they see, which means when you're singing this, they have to see the letter. Now, I have this gigantic little alphabet chart. You can use any alphabet chart. You could even just on a piece of paper make an A, capital A, and lowercase. Capital B and lowercase b, if you don't have an alphabet chart or an alphabet train. On Teachers Pay Teachers, I don't have the secret stories on that, but I do have a digital alphabet because so many even classroom alphabets aren't correct. They don't have the right sounds. For example, they'll have an X with a xylophone. X doesn't say Z. It can, but it's highly unlikely. The most likely sound for X is X. So a lot of times in the classroom, our alphabet trains go for pretty instead of accurate. And that's so key that kids have accurate information, most likely sound, not just what is most colorful. So if you have trouble finding one, you're welcome to go on there and look for that one. Otherwise, grab any alphabet train you have. I'm just going to show you a couple because I want you to see how this works. So for example, A says ah, 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 but it can also say a. B says b, 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 and C says k, 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 but it can also say s, 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 and D says d, 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 d. Now I'm going to stop for a minute. If you noticed, I did something strange for the A, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute because that's a link as well for something called the vowels, which are the eyes, ears, nose, and throat of every single word, and they are the key thing we want kids to hone in on. So that deserves its own little piece after this. But for right now, you saw me make those little motions. You also saw me sing through those other sounds. You noticed that A had 2 sounds it could make. You noticed, and actually, that's just when it's by itself. See, this song only hits the letter sounds that letters can make when they are by themselves. So it's not that A can't say more than just that. It's just that A can only say more than those 2 sounds when it's with other letters. But those are secrets. So we'll talk about those in a minute. But by themselves, this song knocks out every possible thing a letter can do when it's on its own by itself. You noticed for C, I said k and s because that's the sound C can make most likely first. For E, I said, or for A, I said A and A. For D, I just said D. Now, what I did were 2 things, and this is really important if you are working with kids who don't have those individual letters and sounds. And like I said, I'm going to get to the phonics piece in just a second. They have to really, really work their lips, tongue, and teeth. So I tell them, I want your mouth to look weirder than mine when you're saying these sounds. So A says ah, 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 ah. Really, really, really work the lips, tongue, and teeth because those are the muscles in which the memories will be stuck. When we talk about accessing these sounds and symbols through muscle memory, through motor memory, we have to activate the muscles to engage the memory. So you can't just kind of sing with a, mouth like this. You also have to connect the symbol to the sound because that's what reading and writing is. So if you're singing and crawling around the floor, but you don't see the symbol that's making the sound, then the kids will know all the letter sounds and have no idea what they look like, which means they can't do anything with them to actually read or write, which is where all this is going. This is not a video about let's learn our letters. Everything is about for reading, for writing, for reading, for writing. It's all about transfer. That's why we're doing all this. So if what we're teaching doesn't go straight to the transfer of its use, why teach it? What's the point? So this is part of why kids need access to both. They don't just need individual letters and sounds. They also need to know what the letters do when they come together and don't do what they should. One leads to the other. And they don't need to be done in sequence. They need to be done in a fluid way so that kids learn this like they learn life, which is, well, if it isn't doing this, it's because of that. It keeps credibility. If you have a rule that you can't eat on the couch, and then your little one comes in and he sees his big brother eating on the couch, the first question he's going to say is, why does he get to eat on the couch? You're not supposed to eat on the couch. You told me I'm not allowed to eat on the couch. Honey, he hurt his leg in practice, so he can't sit and bend his leg, so he needs to keep his leg up, and it hurts him to walk. So for tonight, he's getting to eat on the couch. Oh, that's what they need. They need to know, here's what it does, but if it doesn't, here's why. So that's where I'm going to get in a minute with the secrets. Never hold them off, ever, because kids won't believe you when you say T says if every single time they see it, it actually never does. And I'll get there in a minute, but it's a dual track. So all of this is going toward what I mentioned about transfer. We're teaching this for transfer. So with those individual letters and sounds, the 2 things you want to make sure you do is muscle mouth, really work the lips, tongue, and teeth. In the classroom, teachers will give a muscle mouth award, not to be confused with a motor mouth award. Muscle mouth award means I'm looking to see whether the boys or girls, I'm going to see which ones have the best muscle mouth. If you have 4 kids, see which one has the best muscle mouth. That's the person that's really, really working those muscles. The other thing is eye glue. Eye glue means that your eyes are glued to my finger. So when I'm pointing to the letter that we're singing, your eyes are glued right to it. You're going to see what you sing and sing what you see. That is crucial for kids to connect the sound symbol relationship when they're doing this song. So you do this twice a day, every day, 2 weeks, and just watch what happens. Now, while you're doing that, and for those that just tuned in, you'll know how to do it because the links are in the description. So I only did a little bit of it because we only have an hour, but you'll be able to see more than you ever wanted to and then do it with your kids. You do not need to use the links to sing it with your kids. The tune is da 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 da, row, row, row your boat. So it's a simple, easy tune. You already know it. Just listen to it once or twice, then you'll get it, and you can do it without, playing it. Now, here's the thing. When you sing that song, one of the things you're going to be singing when you get to T is T says t. Now, the problem with that is it's actually almost never going to say t unless the book you're reading is about Tommy and his turtle trotting to Toronto, which is highly unlikely. Instead, what you'll see is the letter that looks like this going f. And you will not just see that a little bit, you will see it 10 to 1, because on every single book, on any page you pick up, on every line of every book, you're going to see T. But it's not saying t because it's with someone it's not supposed to be with. See, T is never, ever supposed to be able to sit with H because they don't behave. They're not supposed to be together ever. They've been told this, but they don't listen. And so guess what happens? Every single time T is with H, they always stick their tongues out at each other and they go, and that's the sound they make, which is why they're not allowed to sit together. But guess what? They don't listen. So you pick up any book, you look at any page, and there they sit, those two little ones that are not supposed to be together. And every single time they always go. Now, I would bet that there's not a single kid among all of our children who could not come home and tell us who can't sit together, who got in trouble for sitting together, what the punishment was, what the principal said, what the teacher said she was going to do. They can keep track of these behavioral, social, emotional connections like clockwork. So we're just cheating because we are tracking high leverage phonics skills on already existing, already understood social emotional pathways, like what happens when you get together with someone that you're not supposed to sit with and that you don't get along. Now, this is really important because you need to keep credibility when you tell your kids T says T. Because if you tell them that, and then every single time they actually see it in real text, it never does, the brain, as a pattern-making machine, is going to go 1 to 1, I quit, it's a draw, I don't have a clue. And if we want to keep the brain in the game and build those higher level thinking, critical analysis, cognitive executive functioning centers, we need to make sense. We need to lay a breadcrumb trail that's logical, that you can make deductions as you're working your way through. We don't want to always be the scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz that says one thing and then proceeds to show them something else. So I tell teachers this all the time. If you're going to sing the alphabet song in your classroom, and let's say you're just singing whatever song, and you're like, A says apple, but it can also say acorn, A. And then you walk to your calendar, the month of August, and you blow that to heck because you point to the same capital A, but you track the word as August. That makes no sense. Not only did you not make the sound you just said A was supposed to make, you made a whole different sound, and I believe it belongs to a whole other letter that says ah, and it's an O, and that's not an O. So if we proceed to constantly contradict ourselves, which by default you will, because the least likely sounds letters will make are the ones they make individually. Those are their least likely sounds. So the fact that we start with those means we're really sending kids on a wild goose chase. We are giving them the least likely effective tools to attack text with when we're spending all year trying to teach only the individual letters and sounds. So if we want what the value is in that to hold, we need to give them the if nots, just like the brother on the couch. The way that we can make that make sense is in the moment when our little one says, why does he get to sit on the couch? That's not the rule. Well, because his leg hurts. He got hurt in practice. That. Oh, so you immediately start working within the brain system for learning as a pattern making machine, which is if not this, then that. If not that, then this. If all else fails, here's the reason. This is the way we think through the day. This is what drives our thinking and our decision making all day long. So we don't want to thwart that. We want to work right alongside it. So those individual letter sounds are the sounds letters are supposed to make. But you know what? When you see them in words and they're not doing what they should, just means there's a grown-up reading secret in that word that you don't know yet. Now, I don't know if I can tell you because it's a big one. It's a big secret. That word's like a third grade word. And if I tell you a secret that's too big before your brain is ready for it, your brain could explode. And I don't want that to happen. Now, I know that sounds cruel, but there's a significant motivational factor there, which is I've got it, you want it. I'll decide if you can have it, but you know what? I wouldn't hold my breath. This one's big. I mean, it's a big secret. And you're just like little. Like, I mean, you're brilliant. You're really smart. But gosh, I don't think I've never ever even thought about teaching a kindergartner a secret. That's this secret. It's like a third grade secret. Now, the more you amp that up, what you're doing is turning the tables so that you're not the one going, you need to practice. You need to look at this. You're not even paying attention. You can go outside as soon as we do the alphabet practice. Honey, come here, come here. You got it. Look, this is really important if you're going to want to read one day. You don't want to be the one that has the need to know. You want them to be the one that has the need to know. What drives the brain's learning is a need to know. I want to know this. The attention that you can get when you can trigger the need to know is it's a completely different level of focus and concentration. So it's a heightened state of alert. You actually have a pulse rise. You have a way to mark that information for memory and prioritize learning in the brain if it can come in as a need to know, learner-driven explanation. So that's the way we want this information to be delivered, not as something where you're just telling them stuff and talking at them. We want them to come at you for it. We want them to call you on the carpet every time a letter didn't do what it should. And that's why the Better Alphabet song is so important as a baseline for parents who already have kids who already know it. It's the baseline. It's what establishes what letters are supposed to do so that when they don't, kids can start pulling on those threads. You don't want to have to drive the train. You really want to start this strategically in such a way that the kids drive the train. So they can't know letters aren't doing what they should if they don't know what they're supposed to do, which is why the Better Alphabet is so important. And it's also why you have to fast track those individual letters and sounds. Anything that takes a year to teach individual letters and sounds is just, it's just cutting off your nose to spite your face. Because all the reading and the writing that you're doing in the interim is defying everything those individual letters and sounds are giving you. Not to mention, if you take a whole year to learn the individual letters and sounds, if I want to write about my pet mouse, I can't. If I have this scripted scope and sequence of when I can have access to what parts of the code, then OUOW, the ow sound, is not taught until second grade on grade level scope and sequence. Now, I'm not saying scopes and sequences are bad. They're not. Curriculum's not bad. Programs aren't bad. But the teaching comes from you, not a program. So you can give access to something long before a program decides to formally give it. So the OUOW, I need to know that sound now, because if I have to wait to second grade to get it, my mouse will be dead by the time I have the ow sound I need to write about them. And I don't see the ow sound on the alphabet train that I know. So what's a kindergartner or first grader to do? But if you have a way to make sense of the sound they need, like, oh, you're trying to write the word mouse, ow, ow. Oh, yeah, you're right. There is no ow sound up there on that alphabet train. Yeah, you know why? There's a secret in it. Yeah, there actually are two letters that play really rough. And someone always gets hurt, and they're OU. Now, OW play really rough too, but they're not in this word. But anytime these letters like get together in a word, they really play rough, and someone always gets hurt and goes, ow! And that's the sound they make in the word mouse. And not just mouse, but look at the word ow, now, or how, or hour, or power, or goodness, what if your name is Howard? Can you imagine waiting until second grade to find out why you're Howard? Because if you just try to attack Howard with individual letter sounds, you're going to get ha-awa, ah-ra-da. And you'll never know you're actually ha-ow-ard until second grade. Now, by the way, you might be thinking, if you're poking holes and pulling on threads and calling on the carpet, which I hope you are, because that's what the brain does. It always looks for holes. What about the word blow? What about the word flow? What about the word no? What about words where OW isn't saying ow? What we don't want to have to do is, oh, it just is, it just does. You just have to remember it. Because what that means is repetitious practice, repetitious practice. We're going to do this over and over again until it sinks in. And we never know how much that's going to take because everybody's different. So if you can just give them a way to make sense of it, they walk right away immediately and it's already theirs. The only practice needed then is let's use it. Let's use it to read. Let's use it to write. So notice the OW has a little superhero O flying overhead. He's a superhero. All the vowels are superheroes, which I told you I'd get to in just a second. But O is their absolute favorite superhero of all because the vowels are the superhero vowels. They have a power no other letter in the alphabet has. They can say their name. And O is their favorite. So whenever they're roughhousing and he flies by, they will stop dead in their tracks, whatever they're doing. And they'll go, oh, because they love him. Now that's an important default sound. So when kids look up here, let's say they see the word blow, they need to be able to know what to try first. Ow! And then when the word ow doesn't work, what else can I try? Oh! So here's what they're most likely to say, and here's why. And if they aren't, maybe this is what's going on. Maybe he flew overhead, and that's why they're making this sound. So it's a most likely sound and a next most likely default. And that's how the secrets are built. Some don't have a most likely, next likely. Like this is just cut and dry. And by the way, it's interesting. You could actually teach this to a student without they don't need to know a T or an H by name. They don't even need to know what the T and H say by themselves. And I'm not saying don't teach those things, but what's amazing is when you can teach something in a way that makes sense, and stories are such a great way to do it, especially stories that come from what they already know. This becomes easier to teach as a first grade digraph than just the individual T sound. Because everybody knows when you want to stick your tongue out at each other, you're being naughty and you don't get along. Kids already know that, which means it's easy to teach because they've known it forever. It's already theirs. You're just cheating. You're gluing something new to something that's already deeply entrenched in their understanding and experience as a 3-year-old, as a 4-year-old. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to say it's TH, but what they can do is interesting. If you were to say, what do these letters say? They can go, or if you were to say, which letters, and let's say you had like these up on a wall, or you had these smaller things up on a wall, go point to the one that goes, they can, without even knowing what those letters are, or even for sure what they make individually, what their individual sounds are. The individual letters and sounds take 2 weeks to 2 months. That's muscle memory. And it's really the 2 weeks. 2 months is if you're not English speaking, or there's some severe speech and language delays paired with not English speaking, that's your 2-month mark. Most kids are going to be around that 2 week to 1 month mark, but that takes time. That is repetitious, use it or lose it, but with muscle memory. Secrets are instant. You walk out the door with it. The minute you hear it, you know it, as long as you have a visual to go back and check it. So for reading, what kids would do is see this, and that's what lets them know to go. And for writing, they go, and if they can't remember what the letters are, they need to put that down. They can find it, look up here, and copy them. So it's just using the same thing backward and just combining things as they go. Now, I think I started talking about the OUOW with the ow sound. The vowels I just barely touched on, and all of this, again, is going to be in detailed links in the description. But those vowels are, again, the superheroes of the alphabet. They have a power that no other letter has. They can say their name. And when they're not using their power, just like Superman, Wonder Woman, they have these little disguises. They're called their short and lazy disguises because they kind of duck down and hide out of the way. And anytime they're using their short and lazy disguises, other letters won't recognize them because they're loved, like they're the heroes of the alphabet. So they can't be recognized by letters all the time. So they have to have these little disguises to hide. So their little disguises explain their short and lazy sounds. So for example, like I'm just going to show you 2 of them, and all the rest you can see me do in the link in the description. He likes to pretend he's not paying attention and he's not listening. So every time the teacher calls on him, he'll always go, and that's his short and lazy disguise. And then when he's using his superpowers, of course, he says, you. So words like cut, but, I can't think of my words. Rut. Any words where the U is short and lazy, that's because he's using a short and lazy sound. Now, kids, for these vowel sounds, could struggle if you don't give them a hook or an anchor. So what we're doing with these sounds for the vowels is we're cheating. We're gluing what otherwise would be kind of an ambiguous, tricky to pin down sound into something that goes with an action or an emotion that they already have. Like everybody, when they don't know the answer to a question, poof, there's your short U sound. So you don't have to explain the schwa sound, which is actually what the short U vowel sound is. It's a lack of a lip or a tongue position. It's kind of it's a very neutral position with no muscle engagement, and that's where you get the sound, which means it's actually hard for kids because if they do anything to tighten any muscles, lip or tongue, it can turn to or or. So we want just and the easiest way to get that is to pair it with something they already understand. And poof, there's their sound. So cut. All of the vowels have this little trick or trigger to grab their sound. E, she pretends to be a little old lady who can't hear. So every time anybody suspects that she's superhero E, she'll go, what'd you say? eh, and that's her short and lazy sound. And when she makes it, no one suspects who she really is. So words like ed or et. And when she's using her superheroes of super sounds, of course, superpowers, she can say e. So that just gives kids an easy way to access what are the hardest sounds. And so that you know, as parents, often the vowel sound, not often, 99% of the time, with a program, these are taught at the end of kindergarten and sometimes the beginning of first grade. And by these, I mean both sounds for the vowels. Kids get one sound for the vowels, but not both sounds for the vowels. That's a real problem. Oh, and the reason is, by the way, because it's considered to be hard for kids to know how to go long or short, meaning how would I know which sound to make? I'm going to show you the trick for that. It's called mommy E or babysitter vowels. But typically it's not taught until the end of kinder or first grade. And the problem with that is that really ties one hand behind kids' back for a year. Because for 1 year, you know, every word's got a vowel. There's no such thing as a word without a vowel. And every vowel is either going to be long or short. So if kids only have one sound to try for the vowel that's in every word, they're going to be wrong 50% of the time, which isn't good. And then add to that all the phonics patterns they don't know, and they're just basically never going to be right, which is one of the reasons kids don't want to read and write, because they don't have anything to read and write with, because they don't own enough of the code. So by way of being able to fast track their access, they have more to read and write with, which means they can actually do it. And the other analogy that I really want to give you before I tell you about Mommy E, to know which way the vowel will go, because you can toss these vowels out in the first week. I do it in pre-K. There's actually a great tweet, and it's in a download pack, which I didn't put a link for, so I will for you. It's the download that normally goes with my presentation if I'm at a conference. So I will add that after this is over. But it's a great tweet by a kindergarten teacher, and what she said was, and it was in April 19th of a school year last year, and she said, so the superhero vowels paid us a visit today because our phonics program finally taught us the other sound that vowels can make. We've known this since the first week of kindergarten, but it was really a fun review. Now, I loved that. That spoke volumes to me because, first of all, the program wasn't going to give her kids the other sound that vowels can make until April 19th. That's the end of the year. What have they been doing from September to April with only one sound for vowels? And she gave it, and I said, give it, not teach it. She didn't teach it. She gave it to them using this superhero vowel and short and lazy sounds in the first week of kindergarten. So that's 8 months that they were powered up as readers and writers, as opposed to 8 months of just working with one hand tied behind their back, which means A, they're not going to want to read and write, and B, they couldn't if they tried anyway. And that's just one example of the many other secrets that, again, along the way, you can arm kids with so they can make sense of the text that's all around them. And this is why weaving this into the course of your day, now that you are the teacher, is key, because it doesn't have to be a lesson. It's in a bedtime story that kids might notice the letter that didn't do what it should. How do they know what it should? Because the better alphabet song. So if you're doing that every single day, or if your kids already know the individual letters and sounds, that's the baseline. That's what they should expect the behavior to be. If it's not, something's up. There's a secret. There's a grown-up reading and writing secret that you didn't tell me. Are you going to tell me what it is? And then it's up to you if you're ready to tell them that one. If you don't want to overload them, then don't tell them the ones that aren't going to be a lot of bang for the buck. In the classroom, what I would say is you better tell them about, let's say, AUAW for August, because you're going to be dealing with that calendar saying August for a month. So that is going to kill your credibility trying to teach them the A sound if every time you do it, you're going to turn around and point to the same letter A and do the opposite of what you just said. So I tell them, let them know about the two letters that are in love. Let them know that there are two letters in this word August that have this crush on each other. And they are just head over heels in love. And anytime they have to stand like right together in a word, they get so embarrassed. They always put their heads down and go, ah, and that's the sound they make. And it's not just in the word August. Look at the word or look at his name tag, Austin. See, we might think his name is Austin if we didn't know about the letters that were in love. So it lets kids have keys on a key ring to get into doors that are going to be in front of them constantly. If it's a door you're not going to go through often, like let's say it's the last day of August and tomorrow's September, then maybe you don't need to toss out this secret in that moment. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate because it's just a story. So there's no harm, no foul. You're not teaching a skill. You're just telling a story, but it's not maybe the most pressing, most needed tool that they have to do what's going to be happening or what's going to be on their plate for the day. You know what would be if it were September? ER. Because if you try to read the word September and all you know are the individual letter sounds, you're going to get September. September. Well, that's not right. Kids need to know ER, IR, and UR love to go driving in cars, but they're terrible, awful, horrible, no good drivers. And they always love to slam on the brakes and go, and that's how you can explain how they can read the word September, which if it is September, you better do, because again, otherwise you're just going to turn off the brain as a pattern making machine. The brain will leave the game. If the brain can't engage and follow your line of logic, the brain will play with its shoes or lick the carpet if they're in a little grade, or if they're in upper grade, daydream. A lot of it's really interesting when you look at some of the kids that struggle with reading in the upper grades, sometimes they are the most clever. I actually was a terrible reader when I was in school, and I'm not saying I'm the most clever, but you become very creative with how to go from A to B to C when you can't go there the way the rest of the kids do. You know, I might have had to go from A to B and then drop down by P, circle Q a couple of times, work my way up around F, and then meet everybody back at C. And it maybe took me a little bit longer, but boy, did I notice a lot of stuff along the way. And it's that drive and that perseverance that really, I think, can sustain your efforts to do a lot of other things. Plus, you get pretty creative pretty fast because you have to be in order to get where you need to go. So when kids are at upper grades and they start to struggle with reading, a lot of times they are the most logical thinkers. They're the ones who have the least tolerance for it just as it just does. You just have to remember. They don't really know what to do with things that don't come together and look the way you said they're supposed to. They can't just deal with the breadcrumb trail stopping and everything you said over here not actually applying to what's over there. And so they tune out. They don't lick their shoe, but they tune out. So it's amazing to see the hunger that kids start to have to make sense of things when things are making sense. And I love to use this, the code as a way to build their thinking, build their problem solving, build their analytical, deductive reasoning, because this just becomes a vehicle to build thinking. And you're doing it with something they already need to really own deeply anyway, which is the code, but they're getting it years earlier than they need it. Not than they need it, but years earlier than they would otherwise. In a traditional scope and sequence, because nothing is supposed to actually make sense, it takes 3 to 4 grade level years for kids to get the whole code. And that's way too long if they're going to be reading and writing from the beginning of kindergarten. So you don't need to teach everything all at once, but it's all story, it's all song. So it's all easily thrown out there, and then kids can pick up, take it in, and make sense of it and apply it as they're ready. And that's really the biggest message for home use. When I mentioned about weaving something through the course of the day, it could be on a lunch menu. It could be a road sign, not that you're leaving your house, but a magazine cover, a bedtime story, spelling list. But anywhere and everywhere there is text, there are secrets. Commercials on TV. Every place kids look, there is text. The question is, are they recognizing patterns that they know? Are they seeing familiar faces? In secret stories, letters behave like kids behave. This isn't something weird with kings and queens and, pickle princesses and Harry the Hat Man. And it's not strange, arbitrary stories. These are stories they already know, things they already understand. Letter behavior mirrors kid behavior, which means they can make deductions about what a letter's likely to do because they know what they're likely to do in terms of the secrets when letters come together. So all of that to say, this is kind of how this wheel starts to spin. Now, I mentioned the 2 sounds for vowels. Mommy E is how kids will know which way the vowel is going to go. So as soon as you've done the Better Alphabet song, or if you have upper grade kids that struggle, especially with multisyllabic words, where you've got multiple vowels, and forget phonics patterns for a minute, just knowing whether the vowel's long or short can be tricky. Now, the reason this is taught later is it's considered to be a hard phonics skill, and it is a hard phonics skill, but we can transform it into child's play when we turn it into a secret. So here's the secret. When mommy E is at the end of a word or one letter away from another vowel, she will tell that vowel, you say your name, and by darn it, you will, because mommy's close enough if she has to reach over the head of that one letter, get a hold of you and make you say your name. Now that's really key for words like, let's look at the word bike. If mommy E is there, then kids know that I's got to stand up tall and straight and say his name. And that word's Ike. But if mommy's not there, that vowel's going to be short and lazy, just like you'd be if your mom weren't right there close enough to make sure you do what you should. And so that word's ick. So that's an easy way for kids to know which way the vowel will go. And it's important that we do that, because if we just tell them, hey, vowels can be long or vowels can be short, and then that's it, what are they supposed to do with that? I mean, it's going to be like a wild vowel goose chase every time they see any word. Because the first question that a critical thinker would ask is, okay, so it could go a or it could go a. So how do I know which one? Like, if a vowel could be long or short, how do I know which one? Now, if kids don't ask that, which if they're in an early grade, they may not, they're a beginning reader, you could say, isn't it weird? Like, if there are two things it could do, how are we going to know? How are we going to know which sound it's going to make? Like, if a vowel can use the superheroes or he can be short and lazy, like, how will we know when we see a word which sound we should make? So you can guide them with those kinds of questions. Teachers call this thinking aloud. We do it a lot. We're just thinking out loud so that kids can hear the way we are problem solving, the way we are connecting the dots, taking one thought and using it to create or to question another. So model those. You won't have to do that very long, because the more kids know, the more they need to know. The less kids know and the less things are connected and make sense, the less they need to know. Ignorance is bliss. So if you don't know enough to know what you need to know, you have no questions. But when kids know just a little bit, they always say a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, because what it does is it unleashes the why. Kids are wonderful at asking why when they are trying to connect the dots. So you want to trigger that to start happening with text. And the best way to do it, again, is that baseline with the individual letters and sounds, and then saying things in the bedtime story. If they don't ask, like if you're pointing to the word the, or you're pointing to the word that this book is by a certain author, say, that's so weird that this book is by this author. I don't see an I in the word by. That's so weird. But do you know why there's no I in the word by? There's a secret. Actually, do you know who that is in the word by? That's Sneaky Y. Oh, and I just realized I didn't finish talking about Mama E babysitter, so I'll get back to that in a minute. But that's Sneaky Y. Sneaky Y. Remember Sneaky Y? Sneaky Y is actually a second grade, end of second grade level, high leverage phonics skill, but you can toss it out to a 5-year-old easily. You can even toss it out to a 4-year-old if you want to. Y is supposed to say y, and that's what we sing when we sing the Better Alphabet song. But in that song, we also sing that it can also say E or I or E, and here's why. When Y, first I should just tell you, Y is not happy. He hates his sound. He thinks y is like the ugliest sound in the whole alphabet. And when he found out that there were these superheroes, these vowels that had a power to make a different sound and actually say their own name, he was really mad, because he thought like everybody was stuck with their sound. And then he found out that wasn't true. So he got really angry because he hates the sound and he wanted a different sound. So he snuck into the closets of superhero E and superhero I, and he took one of each of their capes, which is where their powers lie. So now whenever he's at the end of a word and he doesn't think anyone can see him, because he's no dummy, he's not going to do this when he's the line leader and he knows everybody's watching him. He's going to wait till he's at the end and no one's looking. And whenever he's at the end of a word and he doesn't think anyone can see him, he'll always be wearing either his E or his I cape that he took, so that he can use their powers to say their name, like Mom E, Dad E, Candy, Sk I, July. But when he's at the beginning of a word, he does exactly what every good line leader should. Yeah, yellow, yes, you yak, yeah. He does what he's supposed to. He behaves and he makes his regular sound. Now, kids already know how to behave when they're the line leader versus how to behave when they're the caboose. If you're going to hit Susie over the head, you're not going to be dumb enough to do it when you're the line leader. You're going to do it when you are at the back of the line and no one can see you, because you know that's where you're most likely to get away with doing something that is not supposed to be done. And I'm not saying use that example with your kids, but you won't have to explain why they should only do something they're not supposed to when no one can see them, because they already know this. 3-year-olds know this. So it makes things very easy for them when they're looking at a word they've never laid eyes on before to give the best betting odds call on what that Y sound's going to be in a word like my versus yellow. Now, if you're wondering, but what about the word they? What about the word play? Or what about the word like today? That's not Sneaky Y. That is EY, AY. And they are just too cool, like Fonzie for you old people. I'm one of you though. And they always stick up their tongues and go, not their tongues, stick up their thumbs and go, eh. And that's the sound that they make. So that's not Sneaky Y, because that takes both of those letters together to make that sound, eh. But that is the alternative sound that kids will notice in text. So what you're doing is you're just arming them with all these tools to attack words they've never seen, instead of just memorize them all as long lists of sight words, which I know if you're a parent, many of you do. You memorize the word my You memorize the word her. You memorize the word she or the. You don't have to. The word her is just the H sound with the and once kids have both of those pieces, guess what they can read? Now, if all they know is then when they see the word her, all they're going to do is go, look, mommy, look, the letters are bad drivers. They go, And if all they know is the individual sounds, they're going to go, ra. I can't read that word. But if they have both, if they have what letters are supposed to do and what they do when they are together and not doing what they should. So letter sounds and secrets, now they can go, I can read that word. And they're as surprised as anybody. But it takes two to tango. You can't do anything with just individual letters, and you can't do anything with just secrets. In order to power up the secrets, kids need those individual letters, and it's the individual letters that power up the secrets. The word the, the word my, I, or E, you could try either one, because remember, those are the two capes that he took. And when he's at the end of a word, he'll always use one or the other because no one can see him. What it lets kids do is access more text, access all text, not just a sight word. You know, when you put the blood, sweat, and tears into learning a sight word, guess what you get out of that? You get one word. One word. So when you flash that card with the word her on it 1,000 times, if all things go well and you flash it enough, you get to own the word her. Yay. I don't know what you're supposed to do with just the word her. Kids need work, her, sure, blur, turn, bird. They need every word that key unlocks. So it's a common denominator, most common denominator. The sound, give them the block, because with the blood, sweat, and tears, earning one word, the alternative is you just tell them something that already makes sense and they can crack thousands of words. So that's the prize. You want to work smart, not hard. If they own a tool, a building block, an a th, an ow, an ing, a sh, they can crack thousands of words instead of just the one word that it's in. The trick is having a way to give access to it and not having to wait. Now I'm back to Mama E and babysitter vowels. So I told you about Mama E, that if she's there one letter away, she'll tell any vowel that's one letter away, you say your name. And that's how kids know which way to go for a vowel. But in a multisyllabic word, it's actually the exact same thing, but brought up a notch. So in a word like fantastic or motor, how do you know whether a vowel is going to be long or short? What about motorcycle? Kids that are at upper grade levels and that struggle with reading oftentimes have no idea whether to go long or short for a vowel that's in a word that doesn't have a pretty little E at the end. And most words don't have just a pretty little E at the end because text increases in its difficulty level. But the secret stays simple. So you can teach this to a kindergartner because, you know, they're going to need it for the word making, but it's extremely handy for upper grade learners when you're looking for the biggest hole in the boat. Because when upper grade learners don't have any of these tools under their belt and they've got a lot of gaping holes in their skill ability, these plug them fast, but you want to know which ones do I use first. And so you want to go with what's going to get the most bang for the buck, the best key to keep on the key ring, so to speak, because you're going to need it the most. And one of the things you're going to need the most are to deal with those vowels. So here's the babysitter trick. Sometimes mommy can't take it anymore. She's just got to get out of the house. She just can't handle it. And so when she gets out of the house, guess what she does? She puts the babysitter in charge. She puts one of the babysitter vowels in charge. So anytime mommy is not there, she's just going to put a babysitter in charge. So guys, if you see any vowel that's one letter away from another vowel, that's the babysitter. It's going to do exactly what mom would if she were there, just like any babysitter would. It's going to tell the vowel that's one letter away, you say your name. And by darn it, you better listen to me. I know you listen to mom, so you better listen to me because I'm the babysitter. So a word like motor is motor because the O is babysitting that other O because he's one letter away. If the word were, let's say, butter, well, the E is 2 letters away from that U, so she can yell and scream all she wants, but her little arms are too long to reach over both of those T's and get a hold of that U, which is why the word's butter and not buter, which is, by the way, what it would be if kids spelled butter the wrong way. So if they spell butter, B-U-T-E-R, all you have to do is say, is that word buter? No? Oh, well, then you better move mommy away because you know what she's going to do if she's one letter away from another vowel. And I know I said mommy, so let's go back to a babysitter one. Let's say matter, the word matter. Well, that's going to be the same thing. Motor. Okay. Instead of motor, motter, M-O-T-T-O-R. Obviously, that would be motter and not motor because mommy, or the babysitter vowel, O, would be too far away to make that other O say his name. Now, that's what I call backdoor social emotional way to track that high leverage skill in a simple, easy, I already understand way. There's no new learning curve there. Kids are already used to looking to see if there's an authority figure nearby before they decide how to behave. And if the authority figure is close enough, they do the right thing. And if the authority figure is all the way at the other end of the store, then they might get a little out of hand until mom or the teacher or whoever it is works their way close enough. And then all of a sudden they straighten up. So this is normal nature for kids. The alternative would be front door instruction, which is meaning that it's an abstract skill. So here is what the skill sounds like, and this is why it's delivered in second grade when it's not a secret. Boys and girls, if you have a word like motor, what we would have here is the vowel, consonant, vowel pattern, in which case we would divide after the vowel, and that would then dictate that the vowel would be long, which is why this word would be motor. However, let's say that we had the word butter. This would be a vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel pattern. In this case, we would divide between the two T's, which means then we would have what we call a closed syllable, which then dictates that U would be short. I hope that this trick helps you identify long and short vowels on the spelling list that you have for this week. Now, that's why that's an end of second grade skill. But it doesn't have to be if we align it with something that already makes sense in their world. And again, that goes back to that brain plasticity, taking access points of an already developed area in the brain and using those to make inroads into the code that kids need now. They need it now. They don't have time to wait 3 to 4 grade level years for these random bits and pieces. And I'm going to kind of wrap up and then go to questions by saying this. If you have a puzzle that only has half of the pieces, good luck getting your kids to play with it. Because who cares about a puzzle that doesn't come together to actually mean anything? No one's going to want to play with it. You're probably not even going to keep it. You're going to throw it away. And that's how it can feel when you're asking kids to read and write when they don't have all of the puzzle. The code really is a puzzle. It's a puzzle that you need all of the pieces of in order to do anything with. Like I said, if my name is Howard or Lily, I need those second grade pieces right now. You can't know who needs what to read the stories they want to write, read the stories they're interested in, or write the stories they want to tell. They know that. And it may not align with what the scope and sequence of formal introduction is. So while you can follow the scope and sequence of a reading program, and you do need to have some sort of a program, because the Secret Stories is not a program. It's a way to make sense of something that otherwise wouldn't, so that you can give more sooner and they can have more to read and write with, which then prompts them to want to read and write more because they have access to the whole puzzle, or at least know that they can get access to the pieces they need when they need it, so that it starts to come together and actually mean something. And that's when it's fun to put a puzzle together and take it apart, is when you actually own the pieces that you need to do it, not when you have half of a puzzle and somebody's making you sit there and have your puzzle time for 30 minutes. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Now, the only other thing that I'm going to hit before I hit questions is, if you do have material, it could look in 2 different ways depending on why you're here. This is something that some of you were sent home with. This is called a porta-pick. This would not be good at all for you unless your teacher has already started teaching the secrets, because it has none of the stories on it. You will have no idea what to do with it, but it's great if kids already know the secrets, because what this does is it lets them access them to read and to write the words they're trying to read and spell. So if you have this, it's called a porta-pick. And if you've already got it at home, hopefully your kids already know enough of the secrets to be using it with, or the teacher's going to be tossing out some more. They are copywritten, so you can't make copies of them, but they come in 30 in a pack and they're like $2 a piece. But do not get this if you don't already have a child who already knows all the secrets. So the other alternative are these little flashcards. Now, these are great because they do have the stories on the back and the picture on the front. However, they're supplemental because kids can't read or write with these. They're great for fun, hands-on play and learning. But the problem is, when you go to sit down and read a book or write a story, you can't be flipping through all the cards to find the sound that you need to write the word bird. Kids need to see visually all of those secrets up on a wall or on a board simultaneously, so that when they're engaged in reading and writing, they can access immediately what they need and see them. So the only way these would work is if you, let's say, hung them up on a board, but then you'd lose the benefit of having the story on the back unless they're just like hung on a clothesline, perhaps. The other problem with these as your core instruction is they don't explain all the if not then this. That's in the actual book. So what typically is the best thing to get if you're at home and you're doing this totally at home, which now almost everybody is the home kit, the home version. And that's the book. There is a musical manipulation piece. That's what knocks out the blends, blah, slah, blah, cluh. You'll see a link for that in the description, as well as all of the secrets and the what to do when something doesn't work, because that's key. That's what builds that next most likely track. And then these cards. And the cards that are in the back are what you would use to make your own portapic, that thing I just showed you. These are a little bit bigger, so they're a little bit better if you have multiple siblings. Just don't do this. Don't do this. This is great if you have more than one set of cards, and this is really cute, and I love it. Problem is, if kids are trying to read and write, same thing. If I want to write the word ow, and I can't remember what letters say ow, you don't want me having to do this every time I need a sound to spell a word. Or if I'm reading a good night story with you and I say, oh, mommy, there's a secret in that word. You want to be able to say, yeah, do you see it? Do you see any letters that are in this word that are up there on the secret wall? They need to be able to immediately take a glance, find it, see the sound, and then try to apply it to the word. You don't want them flipping through this all the time. So this is great if, let's say, you have two. Like if you have in the classroom, if a teacher has an extra portapic, she can make one of these for kids to use for other purposes. But she has to have those visuals accessible where they can see all of them simultaneously. There is a pack that they just put together and we fought for this forever, as well as my friend Amber, who I don't know if she's on here now, but it's the Wild Style Family on Instagram. And if you homeschool, I cannot say enough about how many things I learned from her. And there's some other ones as well that you can see in my feed and that are part of, that I tagged in this, that are awesome. And the way they use this is phenomenal. But what I love about Amber is she posts a lot of videos. You'll see a link to a couple of them that are more in depth, and you can see how this looks with 4 kids and on a farm. So it's amazing. So I think it's 4, maybe it's 3, but I think is it 3? I'm not sure, but anyway, there's sheep, there's goats, there's everything. So I love seeing how, from a parent perspective, she gets to where I am, but coming from a completely different direction. And again, there are other folks on there that I've just been floored by. So Instagram is a great place to look and see great models. But the reason that I say that is because it was recommended that there should be like a bundle where you can have access to 2 things. So they did put together a home bundle, and what it is it's the flashcards so that parents have kind of a quick cheat sheet and a way for kids to play hands-on, and then the actual home kit, which is the book with this extra set of these cards that then you're going to make that portapic out of. And the music download piece, which not just for the blends, but it's the music download's key. It used to be a CD. Now it's a download that you get with a password. And that is the glue that's going to build that automaticity so that kids can read and write without looking at the posters. Music, that piece is probably the most overlooked, and yet it's the most critical. So it not only has the Better Alphabet song on it, but every other track makes kids flip-flop, twist and turn what they think they know to see if they really know that they know it. And it's not with a book or a pencil, which means they beg to do it. And yet it's solidifying all the skills that normally would only be done working directly with text. So when they do work directly with text, they're super fast, super strong, super quick. And then they want to work with text more because it's not hard, it's easy. So that is a key piece that's often overlooked. Don't overlook it. So all of that to say, that is what you'll find all of in the links, as well as a longer, and this wasn't something I was going to mention and I thought about it, but before I answer your questions, I will tell you this. On the 25th of April, for teachers, I'm doing something I've never done before, which is actually an online virtual PD. I only do PDs through districts, or I speak at like state or national education conferences. I never do my own, but because it's needed now and everybody's home, I am. And it's geared toward teachers because it's 8 hours and it's on Zoom. So there can be more interaction and breakout session rooms and discussion. But as you all are honorary teachers now, there really isn't that divide line anymore. You aren't just supporting the effort. It is, you're carrying the flag. So for that reason, I'm opening it up. It's you'll see the link. There's a link in there that you can access. It's in the description. And you are welcome if you feel like you need more than just what this hour is giving you to engage with us in that Zoom. So you'll see that link there as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and answer these questions. And I see the first one that just caught my eye is, I'm embarrassed I hadn't done the music piece. Don't feel it. You would be amazed at how often that piece is overlooked. And I think it's because either for a while, teachers didn't have a CD, parents didn't have a CD player, so they didn't know how to play it. And so they didn't play it. Plus they were already getting where they thought they needed to be just using what they were using. But it just puts on steroids what you're teaching. The goal is to get them off the posters so that they instantly, when they hear a sound, the secret's already in their head, or when they see a secret, the sound's popping out of their mouth. And that's what the music does. So now that there's no CD to deal with and it's all a download, it's easy to access. I just hope that now that there's not like a CD, and it's a download that it's not even more missed because it's literally not there, because it really is what fires everything up. And one of the links I actually put in the description below is to the Beethoven blends. And so that'll just give you a little idea of what is on there and how it works to move kids from symbol to sound and sound to symbol. And there's no limit. You can flip it and flop it, do it backwards, do it forwards, do it fast, do it slow. It's so much fun. Your kids will go nuts, and then you will be begging them to please not make you do anymore. But just remember, every time they do that, it's the equivalent of reading a book or writing a story, because that is really deeply anchoring what they need to read the book and write the story. You're just tricking them because the story, the book, and the pencil aren't there. So you're just giving that superpower without the actual workout. Okay, now I'm going to go back to some of these questions. Now, starting on where Two Hearts wrote her question, that's where I'm going to start reading for questions. I love that there are already folks in here. Thank you, Kendra Jo, for tossing out some answers throughout the chat. And I will be, as I said, looking at a lot of these questions after. I'm going to answer the ones starting from Two Hearts and below now, but then I'll also go back and look into the chat, and I will probably do one more of these in which I will be just answering specifically the things that are most asked. And the one that I saw Kendra Jo answered was about the order. There's no set order. If you were in the classroom, I would say the set order would be following the scope and sequence of your reading program, because whatever kids are going to be reading, whatever their sight word list might be, there are secrets that they can use to just read those. So you don't ever want to slow yourself down. It's a dual track. You follow what's in your face and then never miss an opportunity to toss out something else when kids need it. So it's not nilly-willy like, oh, don't teach it until they need it, because that's actually not what science shows. We do need explicit sequential instruction, but it doesn't have to be only specific sequential instruction, meaning you can follow the track of the high frequency phonics skills first, which is what we were talking about, the individual letter sounds, the vowels, long and short, the higher level phonics patterns like that TH, like the ER. But anytime there's an opportunity, like with Howard or Lily, to give them what they need to do what's in their face in the moment, absolutely give it to them, because there's no reason to hold it back. We don't want to put up a wall just because you're in kindergarten and you're not in first grade, and this is a first grade skill or a second grade skill. They're not first grade skill, second grade skill. It's just the code. They're just pieces of the puzzle that kids need. And different kids need different pieces depending on the stories they want to tell in their writing, or the book they pick up when they're reading, or their name, or you need different pieces depending on when school starts. Like, what is this month? This is April. So doesn't really help too much, but like May is a great time to make sure they know the A sound. And in April, by the way, April, that is a perfect example of part of what would be in the book that you wouldn't see on a card, because April should be April based on what I said, because the I is too far away to make the A say his name. But that's actually where the fun starts. When letters don't do what they should, when the secret doesn't work, that's when we get to play, okay, what else could it be? What else can we try based on what I know? And that's where the higher level thinking really, really, really kicks in. And even words you think aren't decodable, like was or of, believe it or not, they are. They are, if you think like a doctor and you know what's in the box. Thinking outside the box is actually the most fun, but only when you know what's in it. So the secrets are everything in the box, which makes thinking outside the box a whole different ballgame. It's not rule exception. So that's part of what's in the book. You can also find that in a link that is, if you type in doctor on the Secret Stories website blog, it will pull up some snippets of how to help kids when they think, or when you think a secret isn't doing what it should, isn't working, because that's where the fun starts. Okay, can you talk about the kinds of words that we put in jail? Yes, and I want to make sure I didn't skip anything. Wait, I wish I had seen the new parent flashcard option when I ordered last week. Okay, if you ordered, because this was a new bundle that, because April had mentioned, hey, it'd be really great if this could be bundled together, the home version and the flashcards, because she said I use both, so kind of as a switch out, and this would be better to put together. So they did. And it's less. It's actually, there are never sales because the cost is kept so low. This is the only time they've ever bundled anything and actually made it. It's not even going to be offered as a full-time product. It's just a bundle for now because parents are in this unique boat as teachers. If you already bought the flashcards, but not the home version, or the home version and not the flashcards, they will honor the alternative. So if you just send an email to support@thesecretstories.com, they will work it out with you so that you don't pay that full amount. You just pay the difference as if you had gotten the bundle, because we did anticipate that that would happen since this came and was put up so quickly. So just email them, and they can help you and take care of that. Okay, now that question that I saw, which was my students. Oh, and by the way, if you have to go to work or your kids need you right now, I'm going to spend the rest of the time doing Q&A, and I'll answer everything from this point on. So I want to thank you for joining me. I will continue to answer questions. You're welcome to pop back and get to this part of the video if you would like to read the answers, but I don't want to hold you here otherwise. So thank you. And also, if you click subscribe, then whenever I do another one of these videos, you will know. You'll also see links again in that description, including one to subscribe to the email blast, which I'm going to send one out tonight. And these are all geared toward things you can do with your kids that are going to make them go, oh. So it's nothing other than that. And that's really important, I think, especially now, because we don't need a bunch of spam stuff. And I never would send that anyway. I usually only send once a month, things that I get that I think are key to share with teachers or with parents. But right now I'm trying to kind of keep that on a dual track and make sure parents are equally included in that. And I'm sending those out more frequently. There's also that unlisted parent page link in your description, and that's key as well. That really is a great pull together, growing bundle of free resources to use all the strategies that we talked about. Okay, can I talk about the kind of words we put in jail? Yeah, they're few and far between. And that doctor search post that I'm talking about, if you look at that, if you type in doctor to the search on Secret Stories, you will see more detail about how that jail would work. You don't want to put in jail so many words that you have an overcrowded prison system, because it's ineffective. Just like an overcrowded word wall is ineffective. Just because a word doesn't do exactly what it should, if you can still figure it out, don't put it in jail. So in a word like have or April, like April, for example, since it's April, if it looks like it should be April, well, there's only two sounds that A can make by itself. So what else could I say? Well, it could say A, but it's not supposed to. It's supposed to say A because the I is too far away. I know, but let's try the other sound and see what happens. April, and then they get the word. So it's an easy shift. If it's an easy shift to just try the other sound, then do that. Don't put words in jail just to do it, because what that does is it devalues the words that actually need to be in jail. Like, for example, should. The reason of does not need to go to jail is because of can be figured out with something called head bop or thinking vowels. Now, I'm not going to explain what that is right now, but you can find it either by, again, typing in doctor, because that has a link to the thinking vowels, or just type into the search thinking vowels or head bop, and it'll pop up as well. And that knocks out words like of and some and love and come. All those words where a vowel isn't making its right sound, but it's saying instead. There's a special trick to that. Terrasettle is the brainstorm behind it. And it's just another way to rehabilitate. Rehabilitate. We want to rehabilitate when possible. We don't want an overcrowded prison system, or in this case, an overcrowded word jail, which is pretty much your word wall. Word walls in a classroom traditionally contain every word and its brother up on a giant wall, and the poor kids who are looking for the words they need can't find them because there's so many words up there they can't read them all. So we don't want to put a word in jail unless we have to. Jail is like the principal's office. It's like the place you have to go when we just have nothing left to deal with you. And that's not the typical case. Kids do all kinds of things in the classroom. We don't send everybody to the principal's office unless we're trying to make a point, or we really don't know what else to do with it. So it gives up our power. I know my kids hated to send words to jail, because what it meant is, okay, the word wins. We're powerless against it. We don't have the ability to work with it. We have no choice other than to just take a picture, remember what it looks like so it doesn't get by us again. We hated that. If there was a way to crack that word, by darn it, we did it, because we hated having to just memorize words. That meant we were powerless to actually read them. So it's a fun game to play to see which words are worthy of jail and which ones aren't. And depending on your age of your learner, if the jail is for spelling purposes as opposed to reading purposes, I keep my word jail or word wall at the early grades specific to words we can't read unless we memorize. But if you're in an upper grade, you might have words that kids just typically misspell. Don't worry as much about spelling in kindergarten and first grade, because as they can read more, they will. And then the reading is actually the best way for them to fine tune the spelling. You'll see more about that if you go to the writing samples page on that Secret Story website, thesecretstories.com. It will explain the sound, and it'll talk about, well, what if a kid spells the word bird, B-U-R-D, or B-E-R-D? How do I get them to spell it with the I-R-D? So it's a great it's a great example of how reading is actually the best teacher. So we wouldn't put words like that in jail in the early grades, but in upper grades for spelling, your jail could kind of become a little bit more inclusive. And as I said, you can see a lot more about jail in the doctor post. Okay, I love the CD, especially for Better Alphabet Song. Yeah, that's the most critical piece there, because if you don't use the Better Alphabet Song, your kids won't have the base of what everything is, which is what letters are supposed to do before they run amok and do secret stuff. So that's definitely what's on the CD. The problem is a lot of folks do stop there and think that's the most important piece and that's it. And really the next step there is to solidify, to own, to deepen the instantaneous, see the symbol, know the sound. Hear the sound, immediately know the symbol. That's what we're going for with the rest of all that music. Okay, let's see. Okay, I see. Trying to make sure I'm not missing this. I would love to know how to teach the sound of the letter A in the word bank. Same exact idea as the word April. If kids go b, well, actually, I'll tell you a couple tricks here. First of all, if kids go ba-ank, all you have to do is say, okay, what else can I say? Well, it could say A, but it's not supposed to because there's no mommy E at the end of that word. I know, honey, but where are you supposed to be right now? Reading my book. I know, but you're not. You're up here with me again. And I've already asked you when I'm on the phone to please not come up. So in other words, kids also are supposed to be doing one thing and often aren't. They're doing the next most likely thing, or they're in the next most likely place they're supposed to be. So I like to use that as an example when they come up and get upset that A isn't doing what it should, let's say in the word bank, because all I have to do is say, well, what else could A say? Because you're right, it should say A, but you're supposed to be over there doing your work right now and you're not. So what else could A say? You're up here. By the way, not only are you supposed to be doing your work right now, but you're not. You're up here with me, and that's fine. That's the next most likely place you go when you're not doing your work. But what's the next most likely thing that A does when he's not doing what he should? And that would be ah, because when we sing our song, A can say ah, 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 but it can also say a. So if kids know both of those things, just tell them, try the other one. And so when they do, they're going to get b-ank. Now, I like to use that as an example to say, and when they argue, because they will, sometimes they'll go, but that's not fair because A's not supposed to, because it's supposed to just say ah when there's no A. Say, I know, honey, but again, where were you supposed to be right now? See, and you weren't. So why would A be? And letters are just like kids, they're almost always going to do what they should, but when they don't, there's like almost always a next most likely thing that they're going to do. And the vowels are the most likely to do it. So the vowels are the eyes, ears, nose, and throat. Those are the things you check first whenever things don't quite look right. Even with a secret, check the vowels. And again, that doctor post is going to give you a lot of insight. That's really where the fun starts. This is where the real thinking starts to kind of happen, because once kids know what's in the box, they get bored when everything does what it should. When a secret works, who cares? That's too easy. What's fun is when they get to play, okay, what else could it be? What else can we try? That's, the brain loves novelty. So that's where the fun lies, is in all the things when letters don't do what they should. And kids really get to stretch that critical thinking. But if they don't know what's in the box, good luck thinking outside of it. That's why everything's just an exception, because kids don't have all the phonics skills. And so at the early grade levels, everything's an exception and almost nothing looks like it's following the rules. That's actually not true. If you have all of what's in the box, there's very little that sits outside of the box in such a way that it's not readable. Very little. So it's fascinating to see how this shifts on its ear when kids have more sooner to then think through what's left. And again, I'm not doing it justice, but that post will help a lot. And I'll also, by the way, do another video on the jail. There is a video series that you'll see. It's a vlog series, and it's on that unlisted parent page. And it does take you through step-by-step and bite-sized pieces if you're using the secrets, how to really do it. The problem is that jail video was made before Tara Settle just had this brilliant head bop idea. And so because of that, I was able to parole a good number of words that otherwise we would assume are not decodable, not readable. So when you watch that, it comes with a disclaimer to read that post before you watch it, so that you can actually take kind of a little bit bigger step in keeping your jail just for the ones that really need to serve the time. How do you explain the words key or alley? That is in the book as well. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Whereas if you just have these cards, you're going to be like, oh no, it didn't work because this just says it's supposed to say A. Oh, okay. So then what? These are just cliff notes. So the EY can also say E, obviously, like in the word key. So there's an if not, then this. And that's really critical. That's in the actual book. So in the book, the way that it's structured is, and the reason, by the way, things aren't all depicted in the graphics is in order to access more sooner, you have to simplify and not have too many cooks in the kitchen. That's another thing you can type into the search bar, by the way, is if you're thinking in your head, well, why is there secret for this? Or what about this word? What about this word? Along with doctor, type in too many cooks in the kitchen, or just type in cooks in the search bar. So click on the blog. You can get the search bar from any page, but if you click on the blog link at the top, the search bar is right at the top of that blog page. And then type in cooks, type in doctor, type in head bop, type in any of those words. Cooks in the Kitchen talks about all the words that you might think of that aren't doing what you think they should, and yet how easily they're handled. So in the book, it actually will give you those troubleshooting pieces. And that's one of the things that makes me so concerned when I see parents or even teachers just start with the cards, because there are going to be a lot of holes where you can be like, well, wait a minute, then that wouldn't, what about these words? What about that word? So it affects the efficacy. In other words, you're not going to see what actually works the way it should because you've only got the top layer cliff note. These are just to remind you what's here. That's it. So these aren't to teach the secret. I mean, once you've scanned through this red section, and really the red section is the only part that's critical to scan through initially, that's it. Then these are just going to trigger what you already know. But if these are the only thing you have, there's a lot of holes that are going to be missing if you're the teacher. If you're just the parent and you've got a teacher teaching in the classroom, then these are great. These are all you'd need. But if you're the teacher, which congratulations, you all are, then you're going to see that this is a problem. And again, a bigger problem, even more so when kids try to read and write, because they won't be able to use them. You can't use what you can't access, and they have to be up, all of them together simultaneously, so kids can find what they need and instantly use it. And they need to stay where they live. So you can't be moving them all around all the time. Kids need to be quick, like a concentration game, and know where they live, where they lie. So that's another problem with just these, is being able to access them for the purpose they exist, which isn't just to teach it, it's to use it. Okay. See if I go down to you're so welcome. And yes, I do. I get so excited. I just can't help it. And I don't see any more questions that are specific to this. Hopefully everything that is a question you'll see addressed in the description links below. So on that note, I am going to close because I don't see anything else. If you are a teacher that is here, definitely feel free to share this link with your parents, because I hope that it's really going to help them understand how to bite into what you've already started this ball rolling as. And if you're a parent who's coming into this cold, feel free to engage with me, ask me any questions. Instagram is probably the best way to do that, because I can leave you a voice memo response, which I love to do because I have fat fingers and bad eyes, and I don't like doing this typing. And even in email, it's so much easier sometimes to just say it. So while you're welcome to email me, I would encourage you, if you're on Instagram, that is the best way to get me. You can also see I use Instagram to highlight and spotlight what other folks are doing and how they're doing it, so that you really have some great ideas to do the same thing at home. So it really is, as much as I'm not a real Instagram fan, it's been a great platform to get the most information out quickly and easily to folks, and to communicate individually much easier and with less of a delay than happens in email. So anyway, and as I said, there are people that I love to follow on Instagram who are doing this from a home perspective. So the way they're posting videos, I'm going to be posting about 6 of them today. And they just give such great insight and into a way that's going to mirror exactly what you're seeing at home, especially when they're multi-age siblings, because you can compare more with kids that are at the age that you're working with. So all those things I would encourage you to check out. And I don't think there's anything else that I'm supposed to answer. So I will, on that note, say goodbye. But thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that this was useful. And if the questions in the chat necessitate another follow-up, I will be happy to do that. Or if you have specific things that you would like me to address, please let me know. Because if not on IGTV, which by the way, you'll see a lot of videos there on IGTV and on the Facebook page, I might be able to do another video like this. And I also look forward to hopefully seeing some of you in that Zoom for the day. And if you are a parent, as you register for it, please notate that in the registration so that I know that you're coming in as a parent. That'll help me when I do some of these breakout groups to make sure that I pair you with some folks that are really underway and can be the most value to you. And I also see someone asked, can you also list the other blogs, Instagram, using secrets that you mentioned? I will. You will see, I will do that. There's actually in my highlights on Instagram, you will see, it's called, I think, sharing clips, and it's into different classrooms. And you'll also see that as a title on my IGTV. And that is me highlighting some different folks so that you do know who you can follow to look for. And as far as more information about the PD, that is one of the links in the description. It's just above the long list of link references. And I haven't gotten to see if those look like they're all blurred together until after this is over. Once this is over, I can look and see if those links have turned into one big jumbled paragraph looking thing. And if I couldn't see that in the access YouTube gave me when it was a preview. But you'll see that right above that big long list of links. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. And please share with me as well. As you start doing this with your kids, start kind of playing around with these things. There's nothing I love more than a quick video clip that you shoot my way or post on Facebook or post on Instagram or send me in an email, or, any like little moment that you want to share. I absolutely love it. And it's a great way for me to help other parents too, just get one more idea of how things can look like. And everybody's children are different and everybody's way of teaching things are different. And so someone could easily see what you do and connect with you even more than anything I could connect with them on. And that helps. I think that's the best help in watching how other people do this. So anyway, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. And I'm so glad that you joined me. And hopefully I will see everybody soon on some sort of social media or the other. Bye. And bye, kids. Any kids over here? Bye.